Next on Currents News, fighting for Mother Cabrini, the voices are growing louder.
Why did you put the nomination out there in the first place?
Top leaders are demanding City Hall take action to honor one of New York's greatest saints. The Pope's big summit meeting on the Amazon is heating up as well. An exclusive report from the Vatican. The Holy Father is pushing back against critics. A last-minute development in the impeachment battle when the White House signals it won't cooperate. Plus, the shining stars of the Brooklyn diocese are being honored for making their ethnic communities stronger. The news starts right now.
Give an explanation to the public.
That's what a lot of people want tonight about the decision to snub St. Francis Xavier Cabrini. Good evening, I'm Emily Druby. The uproar over Mother Cabrini is getting louder tonight. Many political leaders are now demanding the mayor and First Lady reconsider their refusal to erect a statue for the patroness of immigrants.
I found it to be so offensive. Why hold a contest to begin with if you're not going to take the input of the public seriously?
New York State Assemblywoman Nicole Malliotakis passionately speaking out in support of Mother Cabrini, sending a letter to the mayor after the saint was snubbed by the city's She Built NYC campaign, honoring women who have helped the Big Apple grow. The city deciding the patroness of immigrants didn't deserve a statue.
Give an explanation to the public. Explain to us why a saint who got the most number of votes in our city will not be receiving a statue. And then I'm also asking them to reconsider.
Assemblywoman Malliotakis, one of several public figures rallying behind the saint who, despite receiving the most votes in an online poll, was not picked by First Lady Chirlane McCray to receive a statue. The Italian-American Legal Defense and Higher Education Fund also sending a letter to City Hall expressing their dismay and asking for answers, to which City Hall sent back a letter leaving out the reason for the snub. Former New York State Senator Marty Golden also throwing his support behind the patroness of immigrants, pointing to her major contributions like opening schools, a hospital, and orphanages.
67 other organizations she helped to create. Think about that. So what are you telling the people of the city of New York? Why did you put the nomination out there in the first place? Again, I go back to saying someone in City Hall is tone deaf. They need to correct this.
U.S. Congressman Pete King calling the decision to not include the saint indefensible, writing in an extensive Facebook post arguing Mother Cabrini deserves to be honored by the city for which she did so much, not discarded, to satisfy some fashionable demographic. Good people like Mother Cabrini should not be excluded to honor others.
Ave Maria, piena di grazia.
These latest sounds of support came after 1,000 Catholics led by Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio processed around Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn on Sunday in a show of support for the saint.
They should reconsider, since Mother Cabrini received many votes, more votes than anybody else, and they asked for input. Why ignore it?
I think that she should have been recognized. Yeah. She was a great person.
Currents News and The Tablet reached out to City Hall for comment after the march. The commissioner of their Cultural Affairs Office said, "We've just gotten started on our work to address this historic imbalance. We've made terrific progress already, more than doubling the number of women who will be recognized on city property, but this is a long-term effort. We look forward to continuing conversations with supporters of the many women who deserve to be honored in our public spaces." We asked City Hall again today if the decision against Mother Cabrini would be reconsidered. So far, we haven't received a response. At the same time, Bishop DiMarzio is spearheading a campaign to erect a new statue of the saint in Brooklyn. He's encouraging Catholics in the diocese to voluntarily pitch in to build the new monument, hopefully in front of Borough Hall. Contributions are being accepted through the Catholic Foundation for Brooklyn and Queens at cfbq.org/Cabrini statue. Now from the Vatican, fireworks on this second day of the Pope's big summit about the Amazon. Critics of the Synod are speaking out, talking about heresy, and the Holy Father is firing back. Melissa Butts is standing by in St. Peter's Square with the very latest. Melissa?
Yes, in fact, it's no secret that this synod has definitely been getting a lot of criticism, and Pope Francis usually doesn't speak back. But today he wasn't giving an open speech at the synod, so he spoke directly during his homily in Santa Marta.
The
words of those criticizing the synod on the Amazon have been called out by the Pope. He said these people are more concerned with ideology than with faith.
Io sono cristiano, ma a patto che le cose si facciano così. No, questi cambiamenti non sono cristiani. Questo è eresia. Questo non va.
Doubts and questions were also present in the briefing for journalists, including a serious question if the practice of infanticide is used in the Amazon. It seemed to have different responses by the panel.
Indigenous peoples are not perfect, and indeed they have practices which are not coherent with international human rights standards.
A mí me sorprende.
It surprises me. I've never heard that at this time, these 20 Amazonian populations practice infanticide. This cannot be confirmed.
The panel did confirm some of the themes covered during the Synod's morning session. The mission of evangelizing, forming and creating roles for the laity, including women, and exploring the idea of temporary deacons, and the concept of second-class Catholics.
It was emphasized a lot in many interventions that there are first- and second-class Catholics, those who can participate in the Eucharist celebration and have communion, and those who cannot.
While it's a notion European and North American Catholics cannot seem to grasp, in the vast Amazon covering 9 countries, this problem exists. That is one main reason why this synod has been called.
Well, at the briefing today, the panel explained that so many topics and themes were brought up, but not many solutions. So now we'll just wait and see what the Synod Fathers will propose. In Rome, Melissa Butts, Currents News. Back to you in New York, Emily.
Thank you, Melissa. You said that the Synod Fathers don't yet have answers to the problems facing Catholics living in the rainforest region. Has there been any talk of possible solutions?
Well, I think the thing to remember is that it's only day 2. So what they're trying to do is get the themes and topics out there. Then what they're going to do is listen. Then they're going to break out into even smaller groups, listen and discuss even more and debate. And then what they're going to do is present all of those proposals rather than solutions to the Holy Father, and then they'll create the final document at the end of the month, at the end of the Synod. So I think that's all we're just going to be waiting for, these little proposals.
Melissa Butts reporting from Rome. Thank you. Stay with us for more comprehensive coverage of the Synod. The Tablet's national correspondent Christopher White is moments away. He'll get into the summit's major focus on the environment and how a hanged effigy on a bridge is dominating talk in Rome. That's still ahead in this newscast. A sharply divided Supreme Court taking on a closely watched case today about gay and transgender rights in the workplace.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
Outside the High Court, dozens of gay rights supporters protested. Inside, the justices split along conservative and liberal lines. They're deciding whether it is legal to fire workers based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. As Currents News first reported yesterday, the decision could have a big impact on religious employers. The U.S. bishops are weighing in on that Supreme Court case, warning that changing the meaning of the word sex in federal law could have dangerous consequences. In a new statement, they are saying redefining sex in law would attempt to redefine a fundamental element of humanity that is the basis of the family and would threaten religious liberty. The Supreme Court affirmed that sex is an immutable characteristic in the course of establishing constitutional protections for women against sex discrimination. Such protection is no less essential today. Catholics helped the Supreme Court kick off a new term this week, praying for wisdom at Washington's annual Red Mass. The Archbishop of the capital, Wilton Gregory, celebrated Mass at St. Matthew's Cathedral just miles from the court. Several justices were in attendance, looking to start off fresh in the faith. This year's cases are very controversial, with both religious liberty and abortion on the docket. A new heated development tonight in the impeachment battle. At the last minute, the White House stopped an ambassador from testifying, sparking an uproar from Democrats. Camila Burnell reports the latest from Capitol Hill.
The failure to produce this witness, the failure to produce these documents, we consider yet additional strong evidence of obstruction of the constitutional functions of Congress.
House Democrats furious that U.S. Ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland, was blocked from testifying today on Capitol Hill.
They have done everything they possibly can to obstruct the Congress's constitutional right to oversight.
This is part of the Democrats' impeachment inquiry into President Trump and follows a whistleblower's complaint about a call Trump had with the Ukrainian president in July. Sondland was expected to testify about conversations he had that discussed whether President Trump withheld aid from Ukraine while pushing Ukraine for an investigation into Joe and Hunter Biden. For their part, Republicans said they too had been looking forward to hearing from Sondland, but stood by the White House decision to block the testimony, saying the impeachment inquiry process hasn't been fair.
We wish he would have been able to testify too, but we fully understand why the administration made the decision they did.
A new poll shows that public opinion may be shifting. For the first time, a majority of Americans supporting the impeachment inquiry process, with 58% agreeing that Congress was right to open the impeachment inquiry, and 38% opposed. In Washington, Camila Bernal, Currents News.
A story still developing at this hour. A Bronx teenager is the first death in the city that's being linked to vaping. Governor Andrew Cuomo is demanding federal action to confront what he is calling a full-blown crisis.
This vaping is a public health crisis. It is affecting our young people. It has been marketed to young people. The federal government should act.
Details about the Bronx victim aren't being disclosed yet. Nationwide, 24 deaths from lung disease, along with more than 1,000 other cases of illnesses, are related to e-cigarettes. Turning now to the shining stars of the Brooklyn Diocese, Catholics who do so much to help people who share their ethnic heritage. More than 24 shining stars were handed out to those who are dedicated to welcoming the stranger to the Diocese of Immigrants. The ceremony taking place during a dinner hosted by Bishop DiMarzio. He started the program 15 years ago and explains its significance.
It's a time when we can give recognition to the apostolates so that anybody who does something for the apostolate gets an award.
Really acknowledge the wonderful immigrants that are in Brooklyn and Queens that are such the backbone of our parishes and all the communities, to really highlight and to honor them, but also for us to recognize that we have wonderful examples of people living the faith, doing so much right in our midst.
The shining stars are given out by Catholic Migration Services. There are so many people to be honored that a second awards dinner will be held on Friday. 23 ethnic ministries of the Brooklyn Diocese are part of the Shining Stars program. A new papal ambassador is going to Chile as the church there struggles to restore trust with Chilean Catholics in the midst of the clerical sex abuse crisis. Archbishop Alberto Ortega Martin is being chosen for the post by Pope Francis. The new ambassador has vast experience serving as nuncio to Iraq and Jordan. The Spanish archbishop also held posts in Nicaragua, South Africa, and Lebanon. Stay with us for more special coverage of the summit at the Vatican. The climate-fighting teenager who met the Pope is the target of an anti-religious protest. What it means for the synod. Violent unrest in Haiti is sparking a dramatic call from the country's bishops. Stitches to the face aren't stopping Jimmy Carter. We'll tell you how fast he's back on his feet. A startling distraction from the Vatican's Amazon summit when the effigy of teenage climate activist Greta Thunberg was found hanging from a Rome bridge. A sign attached to the puppet read, "Greta is your God." Rome's Mayor Virginia Raggi provided the photo and condemned the scene as shameful. Greta, who's 16, met Pope Francis in April and thanked him for standing up for the climate. The Holy Father encouraged her to keep working. The bridge incident unfolding as Francis leads the synod focused on protecting the environment in the Amazon rainforest. National correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, joins us now. Christopher, thank you for being here.
Good to be with you, Emily.
Christopher, did this effigy of Greta specifically mention the synod?
No, as you noted, it says, Greta is your God. But I think most observers, particularly in the Italian press today, were saying, look, it's no coincidence that the Vatican is calling this high-stakes summit on the environment, specifically on the Amazon region. Greta herself has been outspoken on this, and to have this take place just a few miles away from the Vatican, folks are putting two and two together and saying there's clearly a link, and the message is being sent, indirectly at least, to Pope Francis.
And how are they reacting?
Well, I think there's a lot of frustration. I think one, they're from Vatican officials, who met Greta when she came to Rome this spring. There's a lot of warmth. Pope Francis himself has encouraged her in her efforts, and so in some respects, it's okay, fair to say that she has the Vatican's backing for her efforts. And so to see this sort of act of what is sort of incitement and violence would be an affront in any situation, but because it is a 16-year-old, it takes on this more offensive tone that I think a lot of people are pushing back and saying it doesn't have a place in sort of public discourse.
Now, already we're seeing controversy at the synod 2 days in. There are several factions at odds with each other over climate change. What positions are they staking out?
Well, sure. So, as we've talked about, this synod is covering a range of issues, regarding the Amazon region, mostly pastoral concerns, but a part of that is, of course, the environment. And I think, we're seeing a lot of voices sort of saying, the church shouldn't be social actors concerning themselves with politics, economics, and climate change. Those are, of course, the critics of the synod. But by and large, most people inside the room are saying, look, the church has always tried to offer a prophetic voice on major issues of our time, including climate change, and that is what Pope Francis is doing in the synod.
So can the Pope put together a coalition of synod fathers that backs his plans to care for creation?
Yeah, I think what's important to note is that the majority of the 300 bishops in that room are from the Amazon region. They're united in what it takes. They're going to differ in terms of some of the proposals, but they're all committed to coming away from the synod with real solutions.
Christopher White, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, thank you so much for being with us today.
Good to be with you.
For continuing coverage of the synod that you won't find anywhere else, you can count on Currents News and the Tablet. Be with us every night at 7 p.m. on Net TV and check in at thetablet.org. Also, the latest synod developments will be posted on our Facebook and Twitter sites. Over now to Haiti, the bishops there are demanding tonight that the country's president step down. The nation's been gripped with social unrest for the past 4 weeks over charges of corruption and financial waste. The bishops are blaming President Jovenel Moïse and his government for the chaos. In a new statement, the clerics are saying political leaders are digging the people into a deeper ditch with no way out. They are the ones responsible for the bad steps the country is taking. The bishops argue the current regime is not capable of leading Haiti out of its present troubles and step down now. Former President Jimmy Carter received quite a scare this past Sunday when the 95-year-old fell at home in Georgia. But just hours after he was rushed to the hospital, new video shows him rolling up his sleeves and getting to work. Despite a black eye and 15 stitches, Carter got busy building homes in Nashville. In his remarks at the opening ceremony, he explained his injuries to the crowd.
I got up this morning at home in Plains getting ready to go to church because right after that we had a family reunion and then we were coming to Nashville. And I fell down and hit my forehead on a sharp edge. I had a #1 priority, and that was to come to Nashville to build houses.
The Carters are among hundreds of volunteers building new homes in Nashville as part of Habitat for Humanity. The Christian couple has helped build more than 4,000 homes around the world since the 1980s. Still to come, a hopeful story you'll only see on Currents News. An icon of Our Lady is traveling through the streets of war-torn Syria, and there's a connection to the Pope. Buried alive for a month after Hurricane Dorian, one rescue is being called a miracle. Tonight, hope is flickering in war-torn Syria. The boost in spirits is thanks to a Marian icon that's been blessed by the Pope. Melissa Butts is here again with the story of the campaign that's being called Console My People.
This icon is making its way through every diocese in Syria to return hope to Catholic and Orthodox communities. Blessed by Pope Francis, it was originally created by this Orthodox priest.
We call this icon Lady of Syria of Sororos, yes, consoling the Syrian people, yes. And I choose to give it to Pope Francis, and he invited me to Vatican, and I meet him. He hosts me in the Vatican and invited me to lunch too. Yes, and we spoken a lot about the situation in Syria. It's incredible.
When he saw the icon, he noticed that Our Lady's face expressed both sorrow and consolation. He saw the tenderness with which the Blessed Mother looks at her people.
The bottom part of the icon is divided in two. On one side are the Syrian people seeking comfort. On the other side are the persecutors. They're the extremists who caused the martyrdom of the now saints, depicted on the top part of the icon. Among them are Deacon Fahedi Sa'al-Nami and Franz van der Laut, a Dutch Jesuit who was shot to death 5 years ago.
We decided to make a celebration for the martyrs and kidnapped people, and a prayer in all churches, Orthodox Church and Catholic Church, to pray, to be together, you know, and to have a peace in Syria.
There is not a single family that has not suffered the death of a loved one. These tears must be wiped away. The Pope is very sensitive to this fact, to the need to wipe away the tears of those who suffer.
The arrival of the icon in Damascus in the hands of Nuncio Mario Zenari was widely celebrated. The hope is that its presence will represent a hug from the world, a symbol of unity amidst tribulation.
Nous confions à elle les souffrances de toutes les mères de Syrie qui pleurent leurs enfants morts ou blessés.
This initiative is part of Aid to the Church in Needs project Console My People. The goal is to support Christians in Syria. For 8 years, they've lived in an interminable war that has robbed them of everything, including their loved ones. Melissa Butts, Currents News.
Finally tonight, a survivor of a major storm found buried alive. 1 month after Hurricane Dorian devastated the Bahamas, a dog was discovered in the rubble. People are now calling him Miracle. The dog was under an air conditioner for 3 weeks before search and rescue teams noticed Miracle by chance or fate. They were using a drone that had infrared heat-seeking technology, and the device detected a small patch of heat. The president of Big Dog Ranch Rescue, Lori Simmons, explains what happened next.
He's just totally emaciated, and he's been there since the storm because he's emaciated and just nothing but a bag of bones and still wagging his tail.
Big Dog Ranch has now rescued 138 dogs since Hurricane Dorian hit. That is Currents News. I'm Emily Druby. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.